Hello and good evening, everyone. We are back with a Wednesday live talk. Very interesting topic we are having today, and an amazing guest from Scotland. Krisztina Wighardt and myself are going to have a very interesting conversation about coaching in schools and how to develop a coaching culture in schools. So I would like to tell you that I'm super excited about this conversation for two reasons. One is I love the topic truly, but the second reason is that I'm talking to somebody who is from the same country as I am, and I this is my first time ever having a Hungarian guest on a Wednesday live. So welcome, Krisztina. It's really a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I would like to tell you that Krisztina is a staff well-being coach in the Edinburgh Montessori Arts School, and also um, she comes from the corporate background, which might be interesting to those of you who experienced the similar transition, leaving the corporate environment and going where your heart is kind of like drawing you back to education, and even more interesting to those of us who have been in education for a very long time, not having this corporate connection. So, Krisztina, would you like to tell us, how did you leave the corporate world to become a Montessori art teacher and then become a staff well-being coach?
Well, I I would say I didn't really leave the corporate world. I was highly attracted by something else, which was the under 18 educational approaches. Um, why I was attracted by that? Because I was coaching people for hundreds of hours, and I was having this same kind of conversation with my clients. And at one point, the this is what happened at school when I was at school, and the failure, and I feel like I'm failing again as I did it in school. So I was wondering at that point how so many adults can end up with so many anxiety and those kind of things that we all meet as coaches, um, anxiety, stress, unable basically live their life happily. So I was interested and I really wanted to explore. Montessori approach literally talked to me. Montessori approach is all about following the child, what the child wants, what the child is attracted to is the most important thing he can learn. Well, we all know when you're motivated by something, when you love something, when you're excited to do something, you're just go there and you learn and you put the effort to learn it.
Mm-mm.
We all remember when we were at
Yeah.
school, uh, it wasn't always the same excitement and
Yeah.
happiness and joy to learn.
Yeah. Krisztina, there is something that really caught my attention when I was listening to you. When you mentioned those fears, lack of confidence, many other things that you notice while coaching adults, and how it comes and kind of emerges from their teenage years. That was very much like, yeah, this is exactly, what I was thinking when I was mentally getting ready for today's conversation, that we have amazing models, approaches to be implemented in schools. Like some schools want to focus on arts, some others want to focus on like research informed practices. And there are many more approaches, but what they all have in common, a lack of understanding how important it is to develop the individual who is involved in those activities. And when I say individual, I think of the teenagers, the kids, the students, but I also think of the parents and the teachers or the admin staff, all
Mm.
those individuals. And what coaching in schools brings, as you very rightly said, is this kind of attention to it, is the focus to them, pointing that it's me. Let me start with myself, basically. So this
Oh,
was very, very interesting, and how amazing that we both had this idea probably for quite some time, you know. And
mm,
another point that I want to ask you about is that you mentioned those in their teenage years, but also you talked about Montessori approach. And to me, when I think of Montessori approach, it's more about the primary school kids, not
mm,
really the teenagers.
mm,
So how does Montessori approach apply? Why are not so we are following kids in primary and we
mm.
are following kids in the kindergarten and they are learning. Why are we not following the learning of teenagers? And why are we not following teenagers in this sense?
So, well, many questions in there what you're asking, and it's really it's why aren't we following our own dreams, right? Why aren't we following our own um, things when we are adults, and why we stop following teenagers? Well, I don't have a real answer because I don't know. I'm not going in there in terms of but what I experienced, and I'm really humble in terms of knowing why other schools uh, are doing this in this way. What we are doing in our school, and we welcome the child when he's 1 year old, and we say goodbye and let them go when they are 17. So seeing them with the same kind of approach, following the child and following that young person becoming who they really are, because it's all about that. And if you're familiar with coaching approach, it's all about that. Who you are is the most important thing, and what you can learn. And you mentioned lack of confidence and stuff. What you can learn the most about yourself, the better is it, because it's not about programs and what you're learning, but first is who you are and what is important for you, what makes you vibrate in the moment when you see a little kid, 3 year old, sit down and um, Maria Montessori used to say that the child learns through their hands at that age, because we know that we give them things to do and they do it by themselves, and we trust them they can do. And when we trust them they can make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, well, they're responsible of that. So they will take care of that too. And they learn to grow up believing in themselves, because we as educators believe in themselves.
Mm.
And why should that stop when they turn 12 or
Yeah.
13? I don't know. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
So, especially in our school, this is what we do. We follow them after that point when they turn teenagers and they start to finally open to the world. And who am I in the world? That's
Mhm.
the biggest question when you are 14, 15. Who am I and how can I connect to that society? How can I become a citizen? But it starts at very young age, and we just go and help them to become themselves.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, you know, uh, uh, that's I'm very intrigued by the metaphor, you know, and I'm super visual, so the image that came up for me was something like the plants in the sunshine, you know. So being a teacher in the school where you are probably is more like being that of a sunshine, where you are creating the warmth, where you are nurturing, where you are nourishing the plants to grow, and you are helping, you are giving what's needed for the growth, and you are observing a lot, and at the same time also providing the protection. Um, Still, when uh, we have those very important questions that every single, not only teenager, but every single people, everybody would ask themselves at a point or many times during their lives, we don't really answer, or we don't really look into answering in the school, in an average school. So because it's all about the rush, covering curriculum, assessments. So how does it work in your school?
We have a curriculum, but becoming yourself is part of the curriculum. So we have, when you, for for instance, if you talk about the teens class, um, so just for you to understand, Montessori, it's not year after year. It's um, the classroom can cover 3 years of rate, sorry, age range, which is our teens hub is from 12 to 17, so at least 3 years. You have many different age groups in the same space, and they learn together when they are ready to learn. So when you have a curriculum, and they do science, they do humanities, English, history, anything else, but it's all connected together. Everything is all taught together. And when it's like this, it's all about the presence and the relationship they have with their teacher, the teacher or the educator or the guide they have is there to inspire them to learn. And they have challenges. Um, they don't have grades, obviously, but they have to achieve things, because this is how you also learn about yourself. When you achieve things, you're proud of yourself, basically, and you create that space when you can say, well, I did it, now I can do something else. They know what they have to learn because they choose to learn that.
Mhm.
So I don't know, I'm going back to your question, but I'm not sure I'm
It's
answering
you are
correctly.
really really on track, and very much answering my question. And I would like to invite anybody listening to us. Feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to bring your question in for Krisztina to answer. One of the question I have, and listening to you, yes, it's a Montessori school. Yes, you're using Montessori curriculum, but many schools are limited to the boring curriculum. you know so what can happen in those schools? Um, how can they bring in those skills? How can they initiate those type of conversations? Is it curriculum specific?
No, no, it is not, because the word is not different. We are living in the same world, so it's not like we are some aliens to this world, and we learn. Yes, of course, we learn differently, but it's the same stuff. So it's the same one. But I think it's a really good question, because most of the educators I talk to, they ask the same kind of question. Well, I'm here with my class, and I don't know where to start. I don't know how to change it. And I would say, um, because we are talking about coaching in schools, well, it's the same thing. Start with yourself, how you want to be in your class, how you want to create that relationship. When If I ask you your experience in schools, when you were a student, what was your favorite topic? What was your favorite teacher? Well, your favorite teacher and your favorite topics is mostly the answer to that is, well, I love that teacher. You had a great relationship with one of your teacher, and then that teacher made you feel that you can achieve something, that you can develop your own learning. Because teaching doesn't exist, you learn, but you learn from everywhere. Today, information is everywhere, the program is everywhere. The teacher doesn't need to make that huge effort of open your books and write, kind of like teaching. So it's all start with you. What do you want to do in your classroom? What is
Mm.
it that you love, that you can, when you're passionate about something, well, your students just sit there and listen to you and learn, because the passion, the emotions, the instant happiness and joy to be together as a class and with your teacher is the little thing that creates that spark.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you mention the word spark and joy of learning so often, and this is so rarely associated with learning somehow. I can imagine, and it's my own belief probably, that if I walk out now on the street and I ask 10 people, like, what do you think of the word learning? What kind of other words would you link it to? They would say like school, subject, grade. I don't know if the work spark and joy and enthusiasm and passion and determination or any of those would come up.
Hmm.
So, um, you know, I'm wondering and very interested in what you think about this. Do teachers have this inclination? Do they enjoy learning? Or after finishing like teacher training, teaching for a couple of years in, I would say, an at a school, I don't want to say average school, but in a school, maybe they just like know how to teach the subject, they know what the curriculum is, they know what the course books are. So do are they really open to learn from the kids? And you know somehow it's just
This is
a
it.
question.
Yeah, it's so interesting. This is somehow, I had this discussion with one of my colleagues last week. Um, you, if you want to teach somebody, you have to learn first. And then he told me that. I was just, what? What do you mean? And it's all about that. You need to look at the child. You need to observe who he is and who he can become and what he wants to do in life. Where is the inclination? What is the passion that is inside that little child, or bigger one if it's a teenager. But and it's all about that. You Before you come up with a beautiful algebraic, I don't know, equation, whatever. Well, before that, just look at the child, ask him questions, who he is, and learn from him. And I found it really interesting because that's the only thing you actually have to learn to create the spark. Because if you talk his language, if you understand him, if you welcome him every morning, and it doesn't mean that there's no structure. There's a solid present structure that is there, and so they feel safe. It doesn't mean they can do anything. Like, I have to. It's just, but this relationship that you create, this learning from the child, helps you to teach and
Mm,
helps you uh, to give him the approach that makes him learn,
mm,
and not the other way. And
yeah.
if you stop doing that, and it's sometimes when I speak with teachers, and especially in the mainstream schools or public schools, there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure because the curriculum and because you have to deliver, and this is a really difficult point. But again, it's the thing, step back. What is that you really want as a teacher?
Mm-mm.
Do you want to keep going like this until when?
Yeah.
Or do you want to be happy in what you're doing? And this
Yeah.
is the time you can actually change.
Yeah. You know, we have a question, very interesting, what you are saying. And I think we really speak to many of the teachers out there with this conversation and bringing up these questions. There's a question from somebody in the race community asking what stops schools from fully embracing coaching? which is a very intriguing question for you.
Well, I think there are multiple things. Um, when you want to implement change in any system that you have, school system are um, interestingly one of the most conservative systems. They want to change, but they really don't.
Mm.
That's it. And I'm kind of laughing about that, but um, basically the structure is so tight and so in place, and they are so scared of losing control, because coaching is about opening, take a step back, ask the right questions, and be agile, accept the change. And when you have this posture of, oh well, no, not really, well, I've seen school system change. I can talk tell you how we ended up doing coaching in our school. Pandemic created a huge crisis, and when you have a huge crisis and you see that your structure is not working well, it just sheds a light on the structure and the hierarchy. And when you see it's not working, when you see that teachers are leaving, well, you have to do something. Crises are good. You need those crises. But I think we also can inspire change by talking to the teacher, by the teacher who can push the whole system to to have that change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, as you said, it was wake up call entering this pandemic period, and probably even before that, there were small crises when those signals and those symptoms that you mentioned they showed. Um, so, what's the response to it? So maybe one of the ways, after listening to you and thinking about this question, we can answer it is probably a strong reliance on structure and the rigidity of a structure, and not asking the questions. We do ask students to ask questions and be curious, but we don't ask the questions. And when I say we, maybe it's the school admin, maybe it's the government, maybe it's the country, or maybe it's the strategy the country is following. They're not asking the questions that might change or challenge the existing status quo, because it might be, who knows, it's dangerous. And the same way the micro context is when we don't allow learners, or we don't trust that learners can find their own way, they can find their own passion, they can find their own solution to problems. But we do want them to find the solution we have to an existing challenge very often. And it's a big generalization, so exceptions are welcome, but somehow this might be happening more often than less often. So decreasing it, or decreasing the incidence when it's happening, might also be a door to open up to new opportunities. And I would like to say hi to Akram Emar, who is one of our frequent listeners and viewers. So Akram is saying that I think that the student will be fond of learning whenever there is a role for him in learning, especially if he finds answers to his questions. Yes, I think it's a couple of points, Akram, you are referring to is what Krisztina just mentioned, is really that passion for learning, really to take charge when designing and when going ahead with the learning, and also them having that sense of achievement when they are finding answers to questions. And we also have a question from Akram. Does the teacher have the freedom to adapt the course according to the needs of the students?
So in our school, yes, of course. Yes. And I would say in any school, yes, they have. But it's knowing that you have the freedom that changes. Um, I think the teachers I, I work outside of our own school system, um, it's always this discovery. Oh, I felt really um, imprisoned in my own structure before, but asking coaching questions open the field, and then you have phenomenal changes that you can implement right away. It's not about not respecting the curriculum. Um, it's it's not about not teaching history as it is. If I take one subject, it's about the way you teach that makes the real difference. If you ask questions, we like ask questions as coaches. If you ask questions, you create commitment in your student, and the student starts to basically think instead of opening the head up, pouring the knowledge in it, ask questions. Those are the basic things that teachers, when they feel that they can make a change, they make that change. They open to another approach that is much more reflective and much
Mm.
more open. Um, and it doesn't change the program, it doesn't change the curriculum.
Yeah. One thing that we both mentioned when we had a little bit of warm up for this discussion, that creating a coaching culture in your school, it doesn't create any extra burden for anybody in the school. In
Mm.
fact, it creates a sense of more of a sense of belonging to a community, more of a learning atmosphere, more of a thinking culture, reflecting culture. So it enriches any kind of curriculum where it is implemented. And I think you can also testify to that, Krisztina.
Oh, yes, definitely. So, if we think that coaching is creating more meetings, more more sessions, more time, I need to do more things as a teacher. It's we know it's impossible. Teachers are already working a lot. It's it's a recreation of how you approach things. And basically, coaching is all about finding the difference that will make the difference. We don't want huge task lists. We don't want to just do things and then say we did it. We want this beautiful coaching. The coaching space is all about, okay, I take a step back, take a deep breath. We implemented meditation in all of our meetings in our school because it's not a waste of time. We all know that, but we just keep thinking that it's a waste of time. Well, no, you have 1 hour meeting with the whole team. Take 10 minutes just to arrive, to be present, to create a space for yourself and just clear your head. And when all of your brain matter is focused on one task, it's just going like this. In 5 minutes, you have your own solutions. And in 5 minutes, you have the team solutions, the best ones. We all agree on something. It's not a battle. Meetings usually with teachers used to be like so painful. Having this moment of take the time to arrive to your meeting and greet and meet other people as it would have been the first time. Even if you work with the same person, just take the time to meet that person, acknowledge that your whole team is there, and be there with that team. And that creates such a wonderful, strong working atmosphere that the solutions just come right away, and nobody asks questions about, oh, why we are doing this or why we are doing that, and it's so difficult and I want to go home. It's all about, we did something powerful together. Now we can go home and rest. So you don't take the, so we've seen the teachers' commitment going up, way up than they were before, and this presence. And I'm present and I'm thinking of something else. I'm really talking about presence of, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm with you type of present. So definitely it's not something more that you have to implement. It's something that you change and throw out all the other ways that you used to work with.
Krisztina, the pandemic period was also a time for reflection for many, because we were in lockdown in different parts of the world for different times and different time periods. But we all experience a different type of reality, presence, and to be present with others, and a little bit more care maybe entered conversations than previously. And there is a nice question coming from experts asking, just building on this, is the need for in schools for coaching programs after the corona pandemic doubled or decreased? Do we have more interest in coaching programs, you would say?
Well, again, I think, and I wouldn't say I'm grateful that this crisis happened, but this crisis has been a giant wake up call for a lot of people in our personal lives, but also in our professional lives. I think most of the people I talk with and I meet and we talk about this in the educational environment would say the same thing. It 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 didn't double. It's just there. We need that and we want that. Now we know why we want that. Before, it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we need something like that. Oh, really? Does it work? Oh, yeah, well, let's think about that. This kind of now is, yes, it makes sense. Let's go for that. Yes, we need that. And it was in the dark. We shed the light on it. And then, yes, we have much more um, um, people asking for coaching in schools.
Yeah. It's very good to know, and probably it's also linked a little bit to awareness, how aware they are of what's needed, and if they're really taking action. Because as you said, we might just be reacting all the time to what's happening and running, because all the time we are reacting instead of taking a step back and then see what's there in the space and what do we want to create and who we want to be when we are creating that change or bringing that difference in. There is a comment from Jacob saying, thank you, Krisztina, absolutely an interesting topic. Many schools are managing somehow without coaching. So what would make them shift, in your opinion, and adopt coaching?
Some basic information on what real coaching is. I have been in contact with coaches in schools that are really not doing coaching. It's mostly mentoring and advising people how to manage school and change. So I would definitely create, and this is beautifully what you're actually doing, your race is doing, it's about creating that awareness that coaching in schools not only exists, but it's one of the key experts that you actually need to hire as a school leader uh, to create an even bigger impact on your school system and the future of those children you're in charge of.
Yeah. Thank you, Krisztina. And just to say, it's not our race. You are part of the race family, and we are very, very happy that you are joined our community. And we always happy to find like-minded people and to be connected with like-minded people. So, um, um, absolutely, welcome. Just wanted to
Thank,
say that to
thank
make sure
you.
you are feeling part of the family. Also, and thank you for this question, Jacob. It's something. It helped me remember that I forgot to say why Keith cannot be here today, and unfortunately, some circumstances doesn't allow him to join. But definitely, if you are here or were planning to be here, to see him and to listen to him, we are going to invite him as a guest. And it also had me remember that there was a point that he wanted to discuss in this conversation and to raise awareness of, is how instructional coaching a little bit represents the borderline between coaching and mentoring. Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit, Krisztina? Because it seems this is where you were also a little bit going with saying that mentoring is more present. Maybe instructional
Um,
coaching also is popular.
if I understand well your question, so what I was when I mentioned mentoring, and I'm just trying to put a label on it. What I've seen the last couple of months in terms of coaching, labeled coaching happening, was teachers visiting other teachers, sitting in the classroom, observing, and then debriefing after that, which is a really valuable tool and session. Um, this is not coaching. This is not what we talk about as when we talk about coaching. Coaching is not about you having an expertise on something. Coaching is about expertise about coaching. So a coach can go and observe the teacher, but it's not about giving the best advices that you can give to that other teacher. So coaching is all about helping the teacher to understand that they already have their own solution and they are the best solution they can find. And if they don't, well, what are the some ways that they can create a space for learning for themselves? And I think it's both ways are really valuable, and I see a huge, basically a huge value in teachers visiting other teachers because it's the best way to learn, even for that teacher who is sitting in a class, sitting in the class and observing what's happening. It's a really good point of view in terms of helping the other professional to thrive and develop. Um, what the plus in professional coaching is working on who am I, what is the space that I have to um, where I can actually develop, and thinking about that previous question, can I change the way I teach? Can I change the program? Can I change the curriculum? Do I need to change the curriculum? Or do I need to change the way I connect with my student? Or do I need to change the way I create relationships with my students?
Yeah, it's really the relationship, that keeps coming back as a theme, when we talked about the favorite teacher, favorite subject, and also learning as such. So it's all about my relationship to learning, my relationship to that teacher or to that other person or to that experience that I am embracing or I'm running away from. And there is something from Kram saying that with all the activities after the crisis, the need to restore work with all activities and programs became strong, including coaching programs. So yes, it's somehow became or entered more of the foreground, and then it was really up to the school communities to decide what do they want to do with it. Some of them maybe just observed it, like passing through in front of their eyes. Oh yeah, this has happened. And when now we are a little bit on our way out of the pandemic period, maybe they just go back to the same, a little bit modified, twisted, but very much at the core. And still looking at having a coaching program as a luxury. Whereas some others might have realized, as you said, that it's really a necessity. There is a need for it, and they take
Mm,
action that we want to do it.
mm,
Um, one of the things that I learned when I was being trained as a coach is that it has been a 2 or 3 or even more decade long story with misinterpretation of coaching.
mm.
One question I have is really challenging. This paradigm. Why do we insist of using the word coaching if it has so many disrupting and so many different interpretations that are not helping us move forward,
Mm.
and always makes it necessary to use as a first step to clear any confusion, myth, and make sure that everybody looks at coaching the same way. Yeah.
Um, well, that's a really good question. I would say I don't know, but it just reminds me something. So we started with this topic of how Montessori focuses on the individual and not on the standard approach. How we can, um, so when we approach a child, this child is unique and um, they have their own personality and identity and value sets of values. So um, if we don't need to this child is not broken and we don't need to fix something. So when we approach our client is the same approach. And I would say if you're a school leader and you decide that okay, maybe I'm going to explore coaching, it's all about the same kind of approach. Who is that person? Who is that coach that you want in your system to actually implement coaching? And this is the same thing. It's an individual approach. It's not about coaching. It's not about the coach. It's about that person I believe can support me the best way. And it's not about credentials and yes, yes, standard in coaching has have been developed and they are important. Those are the basics. But when you choose as a school leader and you decide to at least explore and see who you can work with, that's the most important thing. Is this person is the best for you and for your school system to implement that change? Because a culture change in a school system, it's at least 3 years. So when you explore, and it really has to be an experience of exploration, you don't have to be sure just because that and that person has been recommended or has been it's the best person you think it is. Meet the person and create the relationship. We go back to that thing, create that relationship. Is this the person who can really support that change that you want to implement? And it
Yeah.
works. That's the
Yeah.
only way.
Yeah. And it works 100% of the time, you
Mm,
know,
mhm,
because there is no right and wrong, and everything is right and wrong.
mm,
So it does work, and it does bring learning. And yeah, as you just said, it doesn't have to be perfect. The most important thing is that we start.
mm,
And I asked this question of why are we insisting on using the word coaching, and I got a really nice answer by listening to you, that it's not about the word. We really don't need to be stuck at the word level. We have to go for the experience. We have to go for the understanding. We have to go for the questions, the discovery, the exploration. What it is for me.
mm,
It's not about what it is in the dictionary. It's not about what it is in the literature, how they describe it. My experience in my school, in my classroom, my own experience as a teacher, parent, or a child, or a student with coaching will be very different. And that will be my experience. And based on that experience, that will be my definition.
mm,
So, and a word of encouragement, everyone, don't look at the word, but go for the experience for yourself. And as you refer to the um, who you were talking to the school leaders, I would like to take this opportunity to ask you to introduce us to those very lovely 4 leadership principles that you have in your schools.
mm.
Feels like it can be a nice summary for today's conversation.
So what we have developed is, and it's I would say there's it's again it's not a standard. It's all about being ready for the change and being agile when something doesn't work. Don't insist, just go and do something else. And it's all about that coaching approach. So what we have developed, and I say we, I was the only coach, but I always work in partnership with the leadership team, and this is really important. um, First pillar, I would say, so we have 4 pillars today in this approach. First pillar is the leadership coaching, taking the time to create those fundamental sessions with the leadership team of thinking of the vision, creating the mission, creating this a culture change is 3 years minimum. Implement it um, takes a long time. 3 years is a long time, and you can be really tired at one point. But when the leadership is ready and understand that they are the first key in that change, and they have to be ready to that change. They say they're ready, they're not. That's actually the role of the coach, just to remember 6 months later, once we had started the process, to remind that. So the leadership coaching is a constant uh, procedure all along. The second pillar, I would say, is it's all linked together, but it's all about this 3 years plan. What do we want to put in that plan? And then including the whole team, the whole team. So we actually, it depends on, some would say it depends on the size of the school, but at one point you need to include the whole team. The whole team has to create that inclusion for everybody. So um, we implemented team coachings on demand. We implemented individual coaching on demand, and it's they didn't understand at the beginning. They would just, what? Why is it? I don't know how to use that. And then again, we were talking about coaching. What is that? What that mean? You just, when you end up in a school system, everybody asks you the same question. Remind me, what's that again? Coaching? So you actually have to create your own marketing inside the school to explain again, and maybe do some demos and stuff. So creating that awareness of coaching is available whenever you need it is one of the most important things that we have done since the beginning. And from that is that learning point of the coaching approach. And it's all systemic, how we can be coach to each other. And it's not doing coaching like literally coaching sessions. It's all about taking care of each other. If somebody needs help, well, I'm here. I'm available. I can do that. And it's not about, oh, I finished my time. I have to take my break. And it's about, oh, somebody needs my help. I'm just going there. And it created this wonderful balance and trust inside the team. It also created a lot of space for independence and autonomy, and at the end of the scale, responsibility. If something happens, and when you take responsibility of that, well, everything becomes much more, fluid and easy to create. And we come back again, take care. Something happens, well, okay, we take care of you. So that was really nice to see that this was the third thing that we wanted to implement, but it's actually really organically implemented coaching approach. It's simply just to step back and asking questions, and then yeah, some people can ask me coaching questions. How do you want to do that? What do you want? These kind of wonderful questions that if you ask it the right tonality, you just, okay, well, now I can think, even if I know that I have only 30 seconds. So the coaching approach, it's an ongoing implementation inside the team. And then finally, from that, is to create a space where the community around the children, the parents, the larger community can benefit from this approach, and from that awareness that the educational approach is organically absorbing the coaching approach. We don't teach that. We don't teach to children, but children just pick up. Coaching approach is just, oh, it's a nice place to live, so let's live it. Let's create it, and let's feel it. So children's, I can hear children to talk to each other nicely. Well, they are just children, they make mistake, but when you create that space when they can say, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't want to push you, those little ones,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, it's so good to hear from you, Krisztina. The words "let's leave it," "let's create it," "let's ask those questions." With the "let's" is just literally an invitation to take a step, to start it, to take a step and get curious about it. And there are more than available, lots of available resources, and anybody who is interested, they can find away. We are also here at Race, for to provide this platform, to provide that information, to repeat what coaching is again and again in different ways. And that's why we are inviting amazing people like you, Krisztina, to have conversations with us and to show that it does work. It does have a different flavor, a different color, and a different presence in different countries, but it's still working, and it's bringing joy to the learning journey. It's bringing more empathy to the classrooms. It's bringing more care and more kindness to the school environment, and it ignites curiosity and encourages risk taking.
Mm.
So it does all those fantastic things that we want to see happening in the education system. And all it takes is just really taking a step back and start asking ourselves questions before going and asking anyone else. So thank you for raising awareness of amazing points today and sharing your story at the Edinburgh Montessori Art School. I learned a lot. To me, one of the key takeaways was that the Montessori approach can be applied for a whole school environment. I learned that because in my own thinking, it was only for the little ones. And also, I love the different ideas that we pinpointed here in this discussion. And Akram would like to join me to say thank you for this important episode. And I hope that decision makers in schools and educational institutions will watch it. We do hope the same, Akram. So let's do share it and bring people to the channel, to connect them with schools like Kristina's school, where they can learn from the experience, to connect with other coaches who are doing already an amazing job out there in the field of coaching and education. So if we see that somebody shows an interest, let's build on it. And let's raise awareness of coaching in education together. Krisztina, it was amazing to have you. Really, thank you so much for being fully present and inspiring us all. Jacob would like to join as well, jumping in. A big thank you as well. And we definitely want to stay in touch with you and with everybody listening to this episode. Next week, next Wednesday, you are going to see Jacob and then Arabic panel discussion. Wednesday, same time, 7 to 8 p.m. Until then, you all take care and see you in 2 weeks' time with an English discussion.
Thank you, Beatrice, for creating this space. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.